Ready? And this is how we start the show today.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, welcome to the Stiff Truth. All right. Bobby, how are we doing today, bud?
I'm doing good. Everyone's healthy, happy. School's almost done for the semester, and then I get like a good 5 weeks off. Couldn't be better. Well,
Let me ask you this.
minus the whole like pandemic, having to stay at home.
Let's cut through all the bullshit, though, real quick here. Do you have a Cardi B approved butthole today?
No, I don't think it'll ever be Cardi B approved.
So you didn't let her put her long fingernail, like finger, up there, almost like a dipstick, to check it out?
I just don't. I don't do any ogging while I clean.
While you wash it clean. Very good. Well, no, I'm glad to hear that you're doing really well. I'm super fired up today, bro. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm actually getting a little bit more into the Christmas spirit or something like that. But I got the juices flowing today, my friend. And we talked about it. I shot you a couple of pictures of it yesterday. Went yesterday to the Christmas tree farm here, not too far from the house.
In fact, let's just take a moment to look at this glorious tree.
Should we?
No, we should. Check this out, Stiffies.
It's amazing.
That's a magnificent tree.
I mean, it's so full bodied. It's almost like a Budweiser beer. It's clean, crisp, refreshing, full bodied, right? No, but so I go to the Christmas tree farm. I haven't been to one of these things. I want to say, Jesus, man, like early teens, something like that with my parents, shopping around.
Did you roll out in the Castle Nova family truckster?
Close. We're in a Hyundai Santa Fe SUV, so close enough.
Were you flipping off the locals?
So, but no, check it out. We go there, and first of all, every single tree is magnificent looking. They're all very, very pleasing to the eye, and they look like they need to come home with me. One thing I did forget, and I didn't even think about it too, with a full size tree, is how goddamn expensive these trees are, dude. They range from like literally like a little. And I'll just equate it to maybe like a grown-up version of Macaulay Culkin or something like that. Like like a very bare, looks like he's got AIDS or something like that, going through chemotherapy kind of trees. Those are $100, up to like $160, $170 for some of the bigger trees that are, going past 9-10 feet. So I was a little bit surprised there, but then I thought to myself, just buying trees from like Lowe's or like a, nursery, trees they're not cheap. You know what I mean?
No,
in general. Yeah. Like any size tree usually is a decent amount of money. So I was like, that's cool. Whatever. Had Elizabeth pick the tree. You saw the tree. Everybody saw the tree. Now, I mean, that thing is it's plump. It is plump and juicy. It smells so nice in the house. And literally we got that bad boy up. We got the lights. We got all the ornaments on there. I literally have about 15 different Redskins ornaments because Jamie gets me like one every single year. Just once it was done, I felt so accomplished, Bob, that I immediately went and made myself a cocktail right after we were done and celebrated. It was nice stuff. So maybe that's what has me on fire today. I don't know, but I'm feeling really good. I'm jolly. I'm jolly. Can I say that? Because I just did.
Yeah. No. Hey, it's your show. Say whatever you want.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for the validation. Always the validation. I feel like I'm on Parlor.
We don't censor here.
No, we don't. No, we don't. Everybody welcome, especially
maybe a little bit, but that's movie magic. According to what everyone sees, we don't censor.
Yeah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I think I want to say that your daughter petitioned you a couple of weeks ago to get the Christmas tree up and all the decorations.
Since about the second week of November.
Oh,
she's been lobbying. She's like a damn oil lobbyist too.
Wow.
She hits me up like every meal. She's just like, Dad, so the tree? So I bought some time, right? So one weekend I was like, let's go get all of the Christmas stuff out of the shed, right? We have a tough shed, right? So let's go get all that stuff. So we get it all and we put it in the garage, we put all the Halloween stuff away. Okay, cool. We have all the Christmas stuff because the Halloween stuff was still in boxes in the garage. All right, so we get it all out, we get it there, and then she was able to kind of nose through some stuff, and it bought some time. She was satisfied, which is knowing that the Christmas stuff was an inch closer. But then, not even a week goes by, and she's just like, "So, Dad, we'll put the tree up?" And I'm like, "Well, no, it's not time for the tree yet." She's like, "Well, the tree, right?" And then almost like every day, it was the tree, the tree, the tree. And I'm like, "All right, listen, we're not putting the tree up before Daring's birthday. He's on the 15th, right?" And I was like, "That's just weird to have a Christmas tree up for his birthday." And I was like, "So we'll wait until Thanksgiving, because normally our house we have this thing, and this is like what my family's been doing since I was, since I was 4 years old.
Right.
Is when I was growing up, we'd have our Thanksgiving, we'd go to the in-laws, would the grandparents, and we'd go to the other grandparents, we'd go to both parents, right? And then after we'd be home, and then the weekend would start, we'd get all the stuff out. In that house, it was in the attic, right? And we'd start decorating. My mom would put on Christmas music, my dad would whip up some eggnog with bourbon, and I'd have the bourbon less eggnog, but there'd be Christmas music going, there'd be eggnog happening. It was like the thing. So we do something similar to that. Is after Thanksgiving, normally we decorate. It snowed, so I'm kind of putting off a couple of days because there's a lot of snow in the front yard right now. But so our tradition is after Thanksgiving is when we always put our stuff up. So today, to buy some time, or this time to buy some time, I put a couple of deer up. We put the tree up. I ended up giving in about 4 days before, the weekend before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm being strong armed into Christmas by my 4-year-old tyrant daughter. She's been watching the Polar Express and all the Santa Claus movies on the Disney Channel
On a loop.
Yeah, for weeks now. She's been watching her Christmas movies. She's landed on Noel now.
So it sounds like it sounded like she was pretty stoked for Halloween too. So it sounded like she literally, like, after Halloween, just kind of woke up with her eye on Christmas and tractor beam that in and kind of skipped Thanksgiving in a sense.
No, incorrect. She moved on to Christmas before Halloween.
Oh, of course she did. She's like, "I'm going to be Santa Claus for Halloween." How do you like that, fucker?
Yeah, she was all about Halloween, but then when she realized that Christmas was starting to get closer, because you start seeing the commercials and all
Girls,
this.
Christmas around the corner over there. Fuck Halloween. Let's go.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then so she was pretty excited when our adopted elf on the shelf Twinkle showed up the day after Thanksgiving. And so she's been having her conversations with Twinkle, but she calls her Elf. So just this morning, she's just like, "Hey, Elf, I want a pink unicorn for Christmas." So,
relay that to the man, please. That's your job.
She's like, "I've been a good girl." And I'm like, "My headache says otherwise."
Oh, it's a fun time of year, though. I mean, there's a lot of stress that goes with it. I'm sure everybody can attest to that, but it is nice. I will say this too, just because Jamie's in the know. We talked to you about it. Did it, bro? And I know it takes a little while for it to be delivered, but getting the Peloton bike for Jamie Christmas, got a scheduled delivery of January 9th, because it's literally 4 to 8 weeks to get one delivered. Is how hot that company is right now. And I'll tell you this, man. I don't feel ashamed at all. I did a lot of research, right? And I was like, okay, look, Peloton, it's got the name. It is the Apple of the exercise bike world, right? That's just kind of where they're at right now in that space.
They like invented the subscription service.
Yeah, right. With the big screen and everything, interactive classes, all that good stuff. Nordic Track has a pretty strong competitor to what Peloton's doing. They're cheaper. There's some things that are, pros, cons, what have you. But what kind of pushed me over the edge with my confirmation saying, you know what, I'm getting the Peloton bike, is I talked to I got some testimonials. I got some real live testimonials from a couple of people that I trust. So once I talked to both of these people, and I was like, okay, all right. And from both of them, verbatim, totally worth the investment, blah, 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 blah.
So how did that conversation go? You're like, "So Steve, how'd that Peloton work out? You got your wife." And he's like, "Well, it's really expensive, but my wife's ass has never been better."
It's like, literally, when I make my breakfast in the morning, I crack my eggs on her ass now. All right. That never was something we could do
bounce
before.
a quarter off of that thing.
No, but quite frankly, yeah, no, I did get, in all seriousness, a couple of rave reviews, even one saying that during one of the themed workouts, she started crying during the workout because it was such a great workout and great theme. I was like, wow, holy shit. That's intense. But here's the other thing that I thought was interesting, and I had to look within myself and be like, is that really what you're doing, bro? Is that really what you're up to right now? But when I was kind of making that decision and kind of just teetering back and forth between what Nordic Track had the offer for a little bit better price, some of the stuff was upgraded for that price, that kind of stuff, I found myself like just hitting the brakes immediately as I was trying to turn the corner and go over to Nordic Track. And what started to just seep into me, and what I realized is like, you know what? I now am understanding the power of the brand of Peloton, because even my decision for something that is more economical, potentially almost the same kind of features, I found myself feeling guilty for my decision to consider Nordic Track because I would forego having a Peloton bike. So it's interesting how, as you already know, I'm a Mac fanboy too. And I think the power of the brand consumed me, so to speak. So it is what it is. But I'm excited. I'm feeling good about the investment. And it's something that both me and Jamie are going to enjoy too, because I'm definitely going to be on it a lot. But it is definitely something that I think is a great investment, because it's not like I'm just getting a big screen TV or the new technology of whatever resolution. This is something that's going to benefit the family's well-being at the end of the day, right? So, there's that. But pretty excited, bro. That was another thing. Now, granted, I already had one cocktail yesterday because I was excited about putting up the real live Christmas trees in my house for the first time as an adult. And then 2 is when I made the purchase for the Peloton. And after I did that, I got really excited and had another cocktail.
So how long does it take after you drop a couple of G's to swallow that down and get over it and then start getting excited? Because I'm sure there's a buffer in between that point in time when you pull the trigger and you get really bummed out about what just went down, and then you start getting excited. Is it like an hour? Was it right away?
With this, because I had plenty of time to go through the ebbs and flows and the ups and downs of my purchase, and I kind of walked through this in my head a few times. Like, all right, when I make the purchase, you realize a couple grand's going to be immediately missing out of your bank account, but you're going to be okay with that because you got to look down the road here and be excited for the end goal and the product. But I will say about 5 minutes. About 5 minutes.
That's
it
good.
It was pretty quick. I was like, yeah, it's big. But then immediately I started to get excited about it. Immediately, especially when I was scheduling the delivery. I was like, oh, shit. Oh, shit.
Well, I think when you're trying to get your workout on so that you can justify drinking, and it's snowing outside and you're getting down, you're going to really appreciate that investment at that point.
Well, dude, once I can actually get my garage up to par, it needs some work or what have you, but I've got all the workings for a home gym. I've now got a nice it's about 3-4 years old Schwinn treadmill, and now we're gonna have a Peloton bike. We've got a squat rack. You like Sorry. It? We've got a squat rack and and a weight bench and everything. The only thing I don't have because of fucking COVID is all the weights that need to go with it. As you know,
bitch to find free weights, especially dumbbells. Man, it's been terrible.
Jesus. Yeah, I mean, you can buy like a fucking family set with the Olympic bar and all those weights, but it's like $700-$800, which, don't worry, I mean, it's worth the investment. But yeah, you're right. Like finding 25-pound, 30-pound dumbbells is like fucking toilet paper back in March and April right now. You know what I mean?
Or late October. It's
yeah. Or yeah. Excuse me. There was a second wave of panic buying. You're right. You're absolutely right. I think that might be over now, though. I think it might be over.
Yeah, I think it's good too.
What's flash in the pan?
I had gone to the store. It was about a month ago. It was the last time that I'd gone to the store, and I got some paper towels because we were out, and then I picked up some more toilet paper. And This was like, did we need toilet paper? And I was just like, I think so. I mean, I didn't see any. And I just didn't see it, but we had like a huge, like Costco brand new unopened craziness out there. And I was just like, uh-oh, I just accidentally became the toilet paper hoarder.
You know what? Now, you did it accidentally though, Bob, and everybody as humans does make mistakes. Did I?
Or did I subconsciously like, my asshole will be clean, Cardi?
I'm not using my finger either. I'm using tissue paper, bitch. But it is interesting because I honestly, and here's what I did in late October, early November, I did notice everybody freaking out. And what what I think I did is I didn't panic buy, but I did a preemptive buy on toilet paper, knowing that last go around, I learned from history. I learned from my mistakes. I was laughing at all the folks buying toilet paper. I think we talked about this on the show too. And then as I'm laughing at everybody buying toilet paper about a month or two in, I'm like, oh shit, I'm almost out of toilet paper. And now there is no toilet paper. Fuck, what do I do now? So I didn't want to be put in that position again. So as I saw what was happening, as I saw the writing on the wall or the shit smeared on the wall, I grabbed some TP, a big, nice, whatever they are. What is it, like a 36, 48 pack from Costco or what have you?
Yeah, something ridiculous.
I don't know. I haven't even busted into it yet, but I was like, you know what? I'm good for toilet paper for the rest of the fucking year and beyond. Take me to 2020 on my TP, but I'm not going to be that guy that's caught with his pants down, his butt dirty. I'm not sure, but you know what I'm saying.
Well, luckily most toilets are next to showers. You're going to be okay.
Yeah, but you know what? I've got old pipes. I don't want to keep doing that and eventually have to, like, get the plunger in the shower because there's so much shit water in there. Bro. Come on.
Better to be safe than sorry. Well, interesting thing happened. I've been going through a tear of, books. More book buying than book reading, but I have been going through a tear of books.
That's fun, isn't it? I like buying books sometimes, and I don't even crack them open for a while, but it's still just fun to purchase them.
Yeah, I've read like half of one, but school's kind of consumed my time. But I did buy a new book, and I wanted to let everyone know. If anyone saw the movie Ready Player One, it came out. I think it came out 2 years ago now. It was based off of a book written by Ernest Cline, 2011 book. Book is obviously just like any movie, way fucking better than the movie, but that's because it's full of 80s nostalgia, right? It's all Voltron, Motley Crue. It's just all 80s. Everything is 80s.
Continue that on cocaine, crack, hypercolors.
You got it. So everything's 80s. But when you go to the movie, it became a licensing nightmare because then you have to go, you're using so many likenesses and rights and music and movies and everything from the 80s. Then you have to pay for that when you're, doing it in the movie. When you mention it in a book, it's different. Right. So it was all really trimmed down from the 80s nostalgia of the book, from the book to the movie, but it was still a good movie on its own merit, but not the same. So anyway, a follow-up to that book, Ready Player 2, came out about 2 weeks ago, I guess now. And I just found out about it and ordered it. And I'm really excited. It's the first book that I've actually gotten my son to read on purpose, willingly, without, bribing him with. That's not even true. I've offered him $20 a book if he just gives me like a one-page synopsis book report style, just kind of what the book was about. And he's yet to do it. $20 a book.
Wow.
I'd be all over that if I was his age, but whatever. But he read this one for free just because he wanted to. And the second one came out and my copy comes today. I'm super excited.
Where's it coming from? Amazon?
Amazon. So it's funny. I'd mentioned that once to my son. I was like, oh, I need to buy this book. And he's like, well, where are you going to buy it from? And I'm like, Amazon. And he told me, they sell books? I said, son, that's what they are, is actually a book retailer. They've transformed and morphed into what you see today. But when they started, 20 years ago, they only sold books. He's just like, I didn't even know they sold books. I'm just like, wow, how far they've come.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense that he doesn't know that, right? I mean, what is he? 13, 14, right? So, right? Something like that.
Born in 05.
Yeah. I mean, Amazon was doing. Were they doing more than books then? I think they were already. I want to say they were.
Probably, yeah.
They might have branched out into like,
they started magazines. In 97, I want to say.
Well, good shit. Let's talk about somebody that is a professional in a sense, but maybe not in the right field. Let's talk about Dr. Scott Atlas for a minute, please. You okay with that? Can we do that?
We can do that.
Now, Bob, you're a professional communicator and radio personality here. Tell me what you think about Dr. Atlas, and first of all, his I guess his credentials.
Well, so Scott Atlas went to Stanford. Let's start there.
That's a pretty good school.
He
Last time
got
I
his
checked.
he got his degree from Stanford. Did some some teaching there. Doing his thing. Most notably known for being a political pundit on Fox News, and speaking out in line with a lot of the coronavirus conspiracy theories, right? That, masks cause more health issues than they prevent, that,
Well,
what was the other
the
one?
whole herd immunity idea too. Just give it to everybody. The weak will die, and we'll be on the other end of this, and everybody will have the antibodies. We don't even, we don't even need to shut down. That kind of attitude.
Right.
Too. Sure.
Yeah, he was a proponent of that. So much so, like the nonsense that he was kind of spouting and the dangerous rhetoric on Fox News, that Stanford, a lot of the professors and the leadership at Stanford felt the need to actually give a press release saying that his ideas and viewpoints aren't related
Not
to
that of Stanford, correct?
that of Stanford's, right? So
stepping away from the man, so to speak. You're
Right.
an alumni, but we don't support anything you're saying right now. You're batshit crazy.
Right. And so just the fact that they felt the need to get that out there publicly, says a lot. But so interesting thing about Scott Atlas is he was doing all of this pontification on the coronavirus on Fox News. His doctorate is in radiology. So,
Yeah,
he reads charts. He doesn't have any education or experience in epidemiology. He's not a virologist. He's not an infectious disease expert.
I don't want to discredit the guy. He's probably very well versed and educated, and he's, an expert in what kind of radiology? Neuroradiology. Now, again, that's radiology of the brain, essentially, right? I mean, so that's some pretty hardcore shit. However, like you're saying, the last time I checked, neuroradiology in general doesn't have too much to do with infectious diseases at all. So I think he was on Fox News very simply because he had MD, and you know what I mean? And that was really the extent of that. And they wanted somebody that had more credibility than you and I. Is that kind of?
Well, right. I mean, he's a doctor from Stanford. He's even been a professor at Stanford.
And it sounds super legit, right? Like, hey, there's a doctor from Stanford telling you that you shouldn't have to wear a mask. It might make you more sick. In fact, if you just get coronavirus and get it over with and quit being a little pussy, everybody will be fine.
Yeah. If you hadn't heard of his background or anything, or knew what his doctorate was in, and you just heard him on there, you'd be like, oh, the Stanford doctor says this. And that's the idea, right? That is the idea, is that you look at this guy's credentials, you look that he was a Stanford professor, you see what he's saying, you tie the two together, and you just accept it as the gospel. But so that's what President Trump also did.
Hey, right? You know what? Practice makes perfect, and you have not just called him Donald Trump in a long time. I'm very proud of you.
I'm working on it.
You're doing great. You're doing
so
great.
President Trump,
you just did it again.
He saw this guy on Fox News. It was like, that's my guy. Somebody call up Dr. Atlas. We're going to have him run the virus department. Right?
Virus department. That's totally like, can I say something here too? Just to interject. You've done a fabulous job. And this is Suck Bobby's penis hour, but you've done a fabulous job too, refining and perfecting your Donald Trump. Even your facial expressions are getting very spot on. It's going to be sad when we're not going to be able to talk about him anymore, but don't get it wrong. We can always kick him back up when we want to, but good job on that.
Well, it takes 4 years to get it down. And then now he's gone, and I got to start working on my Biden.
That's what Donnie said too. It takes 4 years to get this down.
Because it won't be long before Biden forgets the question he was asked, and I start trying to explain how it happened to the Stiffies, and I need to start working on my Biden. But give me time, but we'll get there.
What did he call one reporter? Dog show pony boy? Is that what he's quoted? Do you remember that when he's like, "You're nothing but a dog show pony boy"? Or something like Biden. What does that mean? What the fuck does that mean? Anyways.
Nobody knows, but it's provocative.
It's very provocative.
So Trump sees this doctor on Fox, right? And he pulls him in. He's like, "You're my guy," right? He pulls him in. Again,
everybody else is being mean to me.
Right. And this guy immediately starts like, with the herd immunity thing. So much that the Mark Meadows, White House chief of staff, for those of you that don't follow along in the nerdery, actually gives a statement to the press that says the White House officially is no longer trying to control the virus. And this is after Scott Atlas came on, which directly goes to the whole point of, they're really going with the herd immunity, but they're not trying to be so forthcoming about it, right?
What's her name too? Not Dr. Fauci, the one that kind of hung around a little bit longer than
That's
Fauci.
Susan Deborah Birch,
something like that. I want to say Deborah Bredix. Anyways, look it up. But I read a little bit about this, and apparently Birx, Dr. Birx. Apparently, as everybody knows, when this was going on, you got February, March, a little bit of April. Fauci is kind of the spokesperson on behalf of the president because it makes sense. He's the most renowned in the country, maybe, top in the world, right? He's also in his 80s too. So take that with whatever it means. But then the other doctor too is quoted saying that she can't even be in the same room for like these coronavirus, like meetings, the department meetings or whatever they have. She couldn't even be there if Scott Atlas was there. Like that's how much they sparred
far apart they were.
And how different their ideology is about how to handle the virus moving forward. I mean, they couldn't even get on the same page so much that a professional, and she was very professional, I think she took a lot of shit in some of those press conferences too, couldn't even be in the same room with the guy. So that to me, not only with quotes like you were just saying, like, hey, White House, they don't give a shit anymore pretty much about the virus. We're not on the same page here. We're not trying to do the same thing as everybody else in the country. And then you have like the infectious disease experts, not other neuroradiologists, his, colleagues or something like that. Actually, people that know what the fuck they're talking about. They can't even be in the same room with the guy because he's so outrageous, right? And I got to imagine, don't get me wrong, there's conspiracies and there's things said about Fauci being involved with the Chinese and him funding, the virus, all this shit, what have you. But there's no weight to that, right? And you literally have a team of experts now that can't even be in the same room as this guy too. And I think it's interesting. I was going to tell you this before the show, but I held it, is when I was very hopeful back in March, April, and I saw Dr. Atlas on Fox News occasionally. I was like, oh, there's that guy that kind of gave me, not knowing much yet, gave me a little bit of false hope, because he says, hey, it's not that bad. Wearing these mask things is not going to help. He kind of said what almost everybody wanted to hear subconsciously, even though there was no science behind it. Do you know what I mean? Right. But, so I understand why he got, probably got some decent ratings, coming back to Fox and everything. They have this credible guy that's telling everybody it's not as bad as everybody else is saying, and what they're saying is not going to really help. Something that's much more comfortable to the American people, not stepping out of our comfort zone, will actually work. Here's how it's done. So I do remember saying, you know what, this guy is kind of refreshing to a certain extent, because I mean, granted, I didn't know shit about shit, or shit about fuck or whatever you want to say. But at that time, I can see why people gravitated towards trying to listen to him. Do you know what I mean? Because what he was saying was kind of relieving. It wasn't as serious. It wasn't quite a pandemic, whatever. But obviously here we are. Sorry.
Yeah. And how the votes went in November kind of give a little bit of insight into that ideology, right? So let's say 70 million people voted for, the president. Okay. Well, let's just say a third to half of those people were kind of in line with what Scott Atlas is preaching over there, and they solidly believe that as the truth, and they won't hear otherwise, because we all know that there's some of the QAnon people and some of the hardcore base people don't even care about facts, right? They're just going to believe what they believe, and you won't be able to talk them out of it, and that's that. So even if you're looking at that minute section of 70 million people, you're still talking about like tens of millions of people that literally believe this. And so that's just the way that it is. So that's what you're fighting against when you're trying to say, hey, everyone, just wear a mask so that we can calm this the fuck down. There's a vaccine coming, but they got to make it. So we still have to buy time, but even to this day, I still see people out there, even my own family posting pictures with no masks, out doing their thing. I'm just like, oh my god,
Dude,
guys, this is not helping. This is not
no.
helping me take my kids snowboarding.
Or me go on a cruise. I mean, people need to lock
Yeah,
that shit up, put the mask the fuck up. And again, we always go back to this because I think it's fun, but it's like prison sex and just enduring it while you know you're about to get your hearing for parole. You know what I mean? Why rock the fucking boat and fuck shit up? You've come this far. Let Big Toady do his thing. Bite the pillow, get through it. It's next week on Friday at 3 p.m. You know what I mean? Just get there.
and I know the parole keeps extending the time and it's going on forever. But luckily for us, we have the ability to flip the pillow over and start on the dry side.
oh, gay rape, gay prison rape is fun to talk about. That's for sure. But no,
Is it
seriously.
still gay prison rape if the rapist puts like a centerfold on your back?
Oh, that'd be pretty nice of him too. Both for you and him. You know what I mean? Keep some of your pride. You know, I like that. But in all seriousness, here, getting back to Mr. Atlas over here. Great name, by the way, Atlas. Right? He sounds like he's a Greek god or something like that. But here's what I don't know. I know about him. We know about him. Resigning. Do you know what was the catalyst for the actual resignation? Was it just was it an aggregate compounding kind of thing? Like, okay, Scott, too much, bro. Look what you've done every single month. You're getting way too much negative press. Or was there an event recently that triggered this? Do you know? Because I didn't see that.
I don't know firsthand, but I'm fairly certain it's because Trump lost.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. Now that
Because he
Trump
was
is on
looking
his way
for
out.
a job, right? And now his job, because he just got hired a couple months ago, right?
Oh,
His
that's right.
job now
Okay.
ends in January. Like,
Mm.
so I imagine at that point he started looking for an out as soon as the election results came in. So, um, I mean, as did a lot of people.
No. Well, I guess it's one of those things, man. It is.
My
I think it's good that he's gone in that sense. But do you think he maybe is getting coddled and maybe has a nice little warm place at places like Newsmax?
Oh yeah, I would imagine that Newsmax and the One America Network has time for him all day.
That's an interesting little thing. I'm glad you brought that up when we were researching things because I honestly Newsmax, dude, never even heard of them. Now I know they're apparently now because I know they started off as a website, but they're now the fourth largest media outlet right now. So behind Fox and like NBC's, CNN, whatever. I mean, they're in the conversation right now. But it was interested me. I never gave much of a looky loo until recently. What about yourself?
Just online,
Yeah.
just online. Well, because I started researching sources from when people posted. I was like, where the hell did you get? Oh,
Oh.
that's where you found that, right? And it was more the One American Network.
Mm.
The Newsmax didn't pop up near as much on my radar until the president started saying, leave Fox News. We got to go to Newsmax. That they'll tell us the truth.
Well, and here's the funny thing. Again, fantastic job on that. But what I want to say here is essentially the reason I believe that maybe I didn't hear too much about Newsmax is because it's very shortly after the election. The election now being over, I think there was a catalyst to this becoming exponentially more popular very recently, just like Parlor, like we were talking about last week in that sense, right? But what happened, I think here, the biggest event is Fox News. And I remember watching Fox and toggling back and forth to CNN when the election results were coming in.
Right.
When they called Arizona hours and hours before any other news outlet, that pissed the fuck off of Trump hardcore. Like I think that was the final straw because there were certain programs on Fox News that were starting to leave his side, so to speak. Some of them, obviously, like Hannity. I'm always going to use that example. These up Trump's ass like ridiculously. But other than that, like Fox and Friends, a couple other ones, whatever, just slightly starting to just diverge a little bit to the side there and just saying, you know what, we don't agree 100%. It was getting under Trump's skin, and that was the final straw. And Newsmax, I believe, is quoted saying, and this is their Christopher Ruddy guy, their CEO, saying that he believes, and I think this really rubbed Donnie the right way. He's like, I think what Fox did with calling Arizona was way premature, right? It was irresponsible, blah blah blah. I'm going to let the state certifications and the electoral college dictate when we are going to say that state's been won, which is fine, whatever, a good thing to say, right? It sounded good. But I think that was the big event right there. And then you've got a lot of people, like you said, it doesn't matter if it's fact or if you got books of data backing up your point. I'm not going to say just Trump based, but people that are blind with their views, right? They're blind with what they believe. There's no changing in some of these views, right? You can present them with anything, and they're going to just call bullshit on it or say that's a conspiracy because it isn't the same, right? So I think you have a lot of hardcore base Trumpers that saw that too, felt Trump's pain, and they all shifted to Newsmax essentially. Yeah, that's what happened. So now all of a sudden they're becoming a talk of the town.
I would like to point out with that event, so news agencies don't just call things thinking this is probably it. They have a lot of like guys in there that are like crunching numbers, right? Until the math says like, let's call it, right? So Fox was the first, and Fox was absolutely fucking right. Like it wasn't even all that close after it all came down to it. Like their numbers were good. So the sources of information that they had from general kind of polling and things from these other districts that were still coming in, they had the right data and they made the right call, and they made it earlier than any other news organization by several days. Right. But you're right. That pissed Trump off, and that was kind of it. In fact, he barely even called into Fox and Friends anymore after that.
And he used to be a regular.
Right. He'd call in at least once a week to Fox and Friends or to Fox Business in the morning, right? One of those he'd call in and spend like, I don't know, however long they'd feel like talking.
He'd always be talking to Neil Cavuto and stuff like that too. I like Cavuto. He always sounds like he's about to lose his voice. Have you noticed that? It's interesting to me. Okay. Well, anyways, that's neither here nor there. Maybe he does a lot of yelling. I'm not sure. But anyways, Newsmax, huh?
So yeah, Newsmax. For those that don't know, it's just it's a conservative news station. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. Is it more conservative than Fox? I don't know. The way that they present their news seems to be that way. But do they have more freedom than Fox in their corporate environments? Maybe that's the reason. Maybe if Fox was more freed up a little bit from corporate restraint and ties to advertising agencies and deals that they have, they might be that way. So I can't say for sure that they're more conservative, but I can say that they present their stuff in a more conservative way. And same with One America Network. I don't think that they have very much holding them back from being free. Was it One American Network? I think it was One American Network that YouTube actually gave them their first strike.
I'm not sure, but you made a good point there. And also what I think is interesting, another reason why, I mean, it gives you the indication that this is maybe a little bit more conservative platform than Fox News is. We talked about it last week with Parler in the sense that there are some Fox Newsian disenfranchised people right now, right, that have been thrown off of Fox because they've even toted the line a little too far, and Fox can't. Again, maybe they're tied in too much, advertising dollars, political, what have you. It doesn't matter. But I've noticed a lot of people from Fox that have been barred from Fox, so to speak, or banned from Fox, have been moving to Newsmax to be political commentators there, right? I mean, Megyn Kelly, I think, is one of them that strikes me right away. There was another one too. Is it Greg Kelly too? I hate to say like double up there, but there's a couple of people there. Even Bill O'Reilly is featured on there and stuff like that. I mean, he was in trouble for like sexual harassment and things like that. So it is interesting too, because the other thing that kind of makes it a little bit quirky, a little bit of an enigma, is their CEO is also really good buddies with Bill Clinton, and also gave millions of dollars to the Clinton Foundation.
Right.
And which is really interesting because when Newsmax was created in, believe 1997, 98, they were known for their anti-Clinton narratives and rhetoric, right? But something happened there, rich and famous. Maybe Epstein was in the mix too. Who knows? It's, the early 2000s, late 90s. But this guy, what's it, Christopher Ruddy, was a regular, I think, in Clinton's properties and vacationed with them, gave a lot of money to the foundation. And yet here he is, CEOing, if that's a word, turning CEO into a verb, what we'll call now, I guess, the marquee conservative news outlet right now. So interesting stuff, dude. I did think that was kind of strange. But hey, you know what? If you're rich and you rub shoulders with nasty other rich snobby people, that's not that strange. It doesn't really matter if you're Republican or Democrat. I will say this: being filthy rich is bipartisan.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And this all really, it's a shame, and it ties back into a previous episode that we have, where we really break down, the death of journalism and the significance of it. Right. So for any of you that don't know what we're talking about, go to the episode, I don't know, 32, something like that. 31.
Keep journalism away from the Clintons.
Yes. Go check out that episode.
Probably our best name. Probably our best name.
Right. And we really break down kind of like why this is so bad for, not only American politics, but for, the future of our republic. So if you want to dig into more of that, you could dig in there. I just wanted to, pimp the previous episode where we get further into this, because we're not going to get further into this on this episode.
That's right. And I like what you just did there. You're all carrot, dangle it. Previous episode, go listen. It's enticing. It's good stuff. All right, moving right along.
It is there, and it aged well.
It did. It really did. By the way, did you read that book by those gentlemen?
No, I have it. It's one of many of the books that I've purchased throughout the year that I haven't gotten a chance to read yet. But man, I'm like on my third Prestige in Call of Duty. So
hey,
and priorities.
And while you're waiting in the lobby for the next round, get some parlor time in there. You know what I mean? Disenfranchising some people, throwing anti-Semitism out there. I mean, you got a full plate right now. I understand why you can't read a lot of books right now. It makes sense.
Yeah, and you can always find my pseudonym on Parler. So it's Conservative Christopher. Where I really break it down for everyone with the freedom of not being censored.
There you go.
Well, Conservative Christopher's a patriot.
Fuck yeah, you are. And and if you remember, get out there, do your job as a patriotic American, and kill the next two liberals that you see.
That's right.
Now, hey, hold on. This is not from the Stiff Truth. If anybody didn't listen to last episode, that could be taken way out of context, and I don't need that kind of stuff right now. I don't need that blowback. However, something else that we talked about, I think episodes ago too, is the idea of Mike Tyson getting back in the ring for call it Holyfield Tyson Part 3. This may actually happen. Now, there's some rumblings after the Roy Jones and Tyson fight. Did you see that?
I did. And I think Snoop hit it right on the head when he said, this fight reminds me of two of my uncles fighting at the barbecue. Where it really did look like two old guys kind of getting out there fighting. Like guys that you wouldn't want to fuck with, but still two old guys getting out there fighting.
Man, I'll tell you what, though, we talked about this. I think I don't know if we really talked about Holyfield online or on a show, but I think we were talking about it just earlier this week, right? This is something where this could be interesting. This has the scales. I mean, there's things I could say that have the scales tip in either direction here for either guy. I don't know. You've seen Holyfield training. I haven't seen him training yet. I will say this though: Holyfield is 58. Mike is 54. Now, we just saw in the last fight that Jones being only 51 right now and Tyson being 54, the 3 years didn't make a fuck of a difference if you are actually more well-conditioned than the other man. Tyson came out guns blazing, looked really damn good in respect to how Jones looked. So I'm saying that could flip the other way here and say, okay, well, you're pushing 60 now, Holyfield. Where does the depreciation really accelerate past where you can kind of condition past it? So interesting. But if I'm not mistaken, I think Holyfield, which is not uncommon, Mike Tyson, I think is 5'10", 5'11". He's not a huge guy, but I think Holyfield has a good few inches on him, right? At least 3 or 4 inches. And I believe
he's 6'3".
Yeah, I believe he's got some pretty good reach on him too. And let's not the elephant in the room here. He beat the shit out of Mike Tyson both times that he fought him in the 90s. So this is interesting to me because I do think that with that being said, that he's already beat him twice, he's got a leg up on Jones. We talked about Jones, right? Jones probably could never take Tyson if they could be equally matched in the same weight class. I just don't see it happening. I see it being a way more entertaining fight and going the distance, perhaps. But well, again, Holyfield kicked his ass twice. What say you about this potential match? And what do you see being kind of the interesting variables here that we need to consider?
Well, I've seen a video of Holyfield training. He looked pretty good. Nothing as crisp and as sharp and as powerful as some of Tyson's training videos. But I've also seen a video that someone else recorded of Holyfield training, and he looked uncoordinated and slow and like he would get wrecked. So
he looked like me out there.
Yeah. No, I'm sure you would look great on a bag. But
oh my God, what a low blow. What a bag blow that was.
So I don't know. I don't know what Holyfield we would see, but I think it's always been tough for Tyson to fight Holyfield. The same with Lennox Lewis, because they have the classical fighting style with the long reach and the jab. They both kept Tyson at distance back in the day in their heydays with the jab, and Tyson could never get in, which is where Tyson wants to live. He wants to live in there within like 2 feet from you, and get in and get blows to the body and lead to uppercuts and hooks, get you to try to counter so he can catch you on mistakes, and that's Tyson's game. But Holyfield and Lennox Lewis were both very patient, technical fighters that kept him at bay with their jab. And if all things being equal, since they're all kind of old and slow at this point, I think you'd see a lot of the same. I think it would be very similar to the Jones-Tyson fight, except for you wouldn't see them clinching near as much. Neither one would be holding each other like that, because I don't think Holyfield would let them in like that.
This is interesting too. I'm just checking this out. Listen to this quote from Holyfield. It's pretty interesting. My side tried to make the fight happen and we got nothing but excuses. So apparently he's been petitioning to fight Tyson for a little while again. Like Holyfield's statement continued. Now I can see why he wanted a tune-up fight before thinking about fighting me. That's what he calls the Roy Jones, which makes sense. We watched the same fight here. He saw the same damn thing. Roy Jones was a good local opponent for Mike Tyson, but a fight with me would be a global event, and the only fight that anyone wants to see is a fight between us. There is absolutely no reason why we shouldn't make it happen.
No,
he sounds like he's on board.
There's not, and we thought the same thing to begin with before. When it was Tito Ortiz talking about fighting him. And then we thought it was going to be Holyfield for sure, because we saw Holyfield training. And then all of a sudden, Roy Jones kind of hit us with a curveball there. But then, I don't know. Again, I'll watch it.
Oh, I would love to watch it. And I think what I think is, and I have to say this about Holyfield, what a stand-up guy. I mean, honestly, he took the whole ripping the ear off and surgically putting it back on in stride. He's not like resentful and bent out of shape to Mike Tyson about it. They're actually on pretty damn good terms, like person to person, which, dude, that's just a bigger man, figuratively as well as, like literally, but a way bigger man than me, dude, because, somebody rips my fucking ear off, I'm probably going to be a little bit sore at them for the rest of my life. And it's going to show through. So it's interesting to me that he is such a stand-up guy and respectful of Tyson still, but at the same time, damn well, he did rip his fucking ear off. That motherfucker wants to get in there too, take all his Christian bullshit and push it aside and fucking knock Mike's head off. So we talked about it in the last episode too. Mike has that vendetta, probably that pent up aggression towards Holyfield for being one of the only guys that could just kick his ass every time they faced each other.
Well, he's a third of his losses came to Holyfield.
Yeah, and Tyson doesn't have a lot of those. And like we talked about, for the killer instinct fighter through and through that Mike Tyson is, that's got to bug the shit out of him. So this will be interesting how this transpires. See what happens in the coming months, because as we both know, Tyson's in peak physical condition for his age. I don't think he could be in better shape. Looking at him in the Roy Jones fight, he could probably just use that as motivation to get in a little bit better shape. But there's a ceiling, right? To a certain extent, you're 54 years old. But man, Holyfield better be watching some of that tape of Tyson if he's going to get in there real quick, because he does have another 4 years on him. And I will say, once you start getting into your 50s and 60s, that's when the depreciation of the human body can probably kick in pretty rapidly from year to year versus other decades previously of your life.
Yeah, these guys should have money at this point. Enough to at least, be going through some hormone replacement therapy and making sure they're getting appropriate levels of testosterone so that they can train and be in peak physical condition for their age. Stuff that a lot of us wouldn't be willing to do or just wouldn't have the resources to do. So I think that we'll see, them at their best if this fight goes down. They need to book it though. And have it in the next few months, because what are we going to wait another year?
Well, and if they're smart, honestly, just going from a business standpoint here, you'd want to get this hyped up, but I think you'd still want to do it when people are still relatively restricted to being at their homes a lot of the times, because you put this on pay-per-view, bro. Like Holyfield said, this is going to be a global kind of box office kind of attraction. You know what I mean? Because honestly, people our age, and especially people older, but especially, people our age too, you hear Holyfield's fighting Tyson. That's not like Roy Jones fighting Tyson. Like that's big. That's big. That's big time. And you want to see that. Are you going to see a spectacle? Is Mike going to lose his cool and bite his ear off? He's not, because Tyson now is finally a mature adult. He's 54 years old. He's a grown man. But I think that's going to be fun. I can just hope, because I'll tell you what, I think we talked about it before on the last show, but I honestly think the fight between Roy Jones and Tyson was probably the most entertaining fight, I'll say with quotes, that I've seen in a long time, bro. I'll go ahead and say 5 years or so. Yeah.
It's been a long time since Mayweather Pacquiao, maybe.
Honestly.
I would
seriously,
say it's probably the most entertaining fight since then.
Yeah, because
there's been good fights, just not highly publicized, big name fights.
Yeah, I'm talking the big hype fights. The last big hype fight was Mayfield and McGregor, right? But that was
an exhibition.
Yeah, that was a spectacle fight. That was already lopsided. We knew going into it. We were very impressed with McGregor. Don't get me wrong. You don't go the distance with the champ of defensive boxing and not get a tip of the cap and everything. But yeah, well, I can only hope, man.
And this will be similar. It's just an exhibition fight. What did you think about Mike Tyson smoking that doobie before his fight?
I didn't
hear about
that. No, please.
Oh yeah. So he was super high for that fight. He smoked a joint getting ready for that fight, and he said, "Guys, this is just me. I smoke." So
yes. Woo! Hey, I'll tell you what, dude. What we need now is we need a new ad campaign for marijuana does an athlete's body good or some shit like that. You need Michael Phelps with his fucking 15 gold medals around his neck, and Mike Tyson at 54 kicking people's ass and saying, "Hey guys, just like the old milk commercials, get out there and smoke a doob and go fucking win the championship." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Now on the other side of that,
Bob, there's not another side of that. There's not another side of that. Let's move on.
Smoking that doob might have toned down a little bit of his aggressiveness as he might have otherwise had for that fight.
That's an interesting point that you just brought up there. Maybe. So you're basically just saying that smoking marijuana in general has multiple benefits. What you're saying right there. Great. That's what you're saying. Let's move right along. I think it's time to go. Hey,
speaking of the pots, the House just voted to decriminalize weed federally. Now we know that doesn't mean shit because it has to go through the Senate and be signed by the prez, and that ain't gonna happen right now.
Just got to go through Mitch McConnell.
But just the fact that they did it, and then I saw some Republicans were bitching about, well, they're just doing that to take the focus off. They won't sign a relief package. And she's like, well, there ain't going to be a relief package that gets signed right now anyway, because no one's agreed to terms. So at least they're doing something. At least they're working, right? At least they're doing something.
Right.
I'd rather them do something than sit around and do nothing. But yeah, so the idea of this is they decriminalize weed federally across the books, and all nonviolent weed offenders are released and expunged from prison. That's a passed bill in the United States House of Representatives.
That's not even an 80s slow cap. That's a ridiculous, woo! Yeah! Oh, yeah! That's good shit. Now, And this is what I was talking about before. This is one thing that upsets me about the balance of power in our bodies of Congress, right? I get nervous if any side is tipped one way to one partisan side or another, right? But this is something, and this kind of progression where we just need to get up with the times. We need to get to the 21st century. We need to get this dinosaur archaic way of thinking out of our mind, that this gateway drug nonsense here, and everybody needs to get on board. Can you imagine though, right now, if there was a Democratic controlled Senate and this was going on right now? Wouldn't we be excited? We'd pretty much be saying, oh yeah, dude, from moving forward, everybody that smokes weed is not going to be a criminal anymore. There will be retribution if you were caught that way. And then now this is finally where it needs to be, in legality. But now we know, like you just said, oh, hit the brakes. McConnell and his boys are going to put the kibosh on that and drive us back to the 1800s. But here we are again. So what are you going to do, man? I can never be happy, Bob. That's what I've decided.
Yeah, I was trying to find the numbers because I do want to say that this wasn't a completely partisan only bill. I want to say that there were several Republicans, but looks like okay. So six Democrats voted against it, and 5 Republicans voted for it.
I know this is bad to do, but vote shaming. Please make sure you publish those on the bottom of the screen for the YouTube video, the 6 Democrats that voted against it. Because remember what our friend told us on Parler, those are the first guys that need to be.
and only 3 conservatives can handle that.
Exactly. All right, guys. So I need the best and the brightest of here to just do this for your country and for God, and we're gonna make things happen. But
look, I did see a little bit more about this. So it's the first time either chamber of Congress will take up a bill, right? It goes far beyond simply decriminalizing it. Including in the bill are several social and criminal justice measures that would help lift up the communities of color ravaged by the war on drugs, while helping build an equitable cannabis industry in which the people of color disproportionately impacted by prohibition have a seat at the table. So what they're saying is that the proceeds, the taxation from this, also go to, reform issues for a lot of these people that have gone to prison. And let's be honest, I mean, how many families have lost a parent for years and years and years because they were trying to make ends meet by selling a pound of weed? You know what I mean? And
it's weed, folks. I mean, it's not
ruined their life.
It's not ruining anybody's life, but their lives are ruined. Yeah, this is ass backwards. It needs to be straightened out. It's due time. So hopefully we'll see what happens. But I mean, we both know it's probably going to have some issues in the Senate, but at least it's there and it's on the table. Honestly, 20, 30 years ago, it wasn't even on the table. So at least we got to be thankful for that. You know what I mean, man?
And hey, 5 Republicans voted for it. That's good.
That's we need to publicize their names too, as people that need to be sent a bottle of scotch.
Not much unlike yourself.
Nice little segue we didn't even talk about, but you're going to be paying up. I think you owe me from a bet from eons ago. And when we say eons ago, I mean about like 3 months ago.
I do. Right? And if it wasn't for COVID, you'd be paid, my friend.
I know. But we've already talked about it.
So apparently there's logistics involved in shipping liquor across state lines. So
it's frowned upon.
It's frowned upon. It's international, what is it? Controlled substances issues, I guess. But anyway, so we'll get there. We'll make an ad campaign for it when Bob finally pays up. But it's a coming. Lannister always pays his debts.
Yeah. And when you said it's
notice that's not a West, so.
No. I like that, disclaiming it in the clear. Well, I'll tell you what, speaking of some drinks, I think it's about that time. I don't know about you. I'm thirsty. I'm ready to rock and roll. I do have a water here. I threw my seltzer that I had away like maybe 10, 15 minutes ago. You want to go make a refreshing cocktail, come back and chat with folks?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Cheers, Scotty.
Oh, cheers all the way. Cheers to your tits.
Cheers for fears.
Oh, it's a great band.
Cheers for beers.
So easy to share. Go ahead and recline that thing all the way back. Pour yourself a nice little bottle of bubbly.
What the fuck took so long?
Did you fall down the stairs again? I know you're prone to doing that.
No.
You can tell me. You can tell me. Come on. You have that embarrassed look on your face.
I did have to make new orange juice, make pineapple juice.
Oh, Jesus. This fucking tree hugging hippie douchebag over here. Not only organic, it needs to be from scratch now, huh? Is that what's going
No,
on?
they were frozen.
Okay. You're over there incubating it. You're all, God damn it. I gotta get
No, but I
that.
had some like Dole's pineapple juice or whatever the fuck in like the bottle with the lid, in the fridge, and it was
Yeah,
gone.
what's up?
It just wasn't there no more.
Oh, the
I think
missing.
it was the boy
What do you think he's doing with it?
drinking it. I mean, I don't think there's anything sinister.
I guess that makes sense. Well, hey, what do we got today, my friend? You want to tell everybody?
Ooh.
Nice. Now, it's not the prettiest drink. I mean, it looks like it's a screwdriver, to be honest with everybody. But today we're having a sex on a Florida beach. Sex on a Florida beach, which we all know has a little bit of COVID and gonorrhea.
So in this case, raw dogging it would be without a mask.
Ooh, now that doesn't taste like a screwdriver, does it, my friend? We'll sippy sip.
No, I mean, pretty much anything with orange juice and pineapple, you're not going to go wrong with. But I love the hint of Midori. I even thought about throwing in like a shot of Malibu in there just to coconut it up a little bit. But got to stay true to form, true to recipe.
It's pretty damn good. I'll tell you that right now. This is another one too. Can we put this on the summer drink menu? And of course, we're having all these drinks in December and November so far. But that's us. That's how we do things. But I got the heater on, so we can kind of fake it till you make it. But this is another very refreshing drink. I think anything with pineapple juice and orange juice mixed together is going to be a summer drink. Call me crazy.
Yeah, and also anything with pineapple and orange juice mixed together is just fucking amazing.
Well, I think pineapple and orange juice in general is fucking amazing. But you're right. And so the Stiffies know if you want to have a variation of sex on the beach, sex on a Florida beach, here's what you got to do. Go get yourself an ounce of vodka, any type of vodka. But if you want to be economical and have high value, you're going to go with Kirtland's brand. And then a half ounce of peach schnapps. Yeah, good man. And another half ounce of Midori or melon liqueur, and then equal parts of OJ and pineapple juice. Shake that bitch in a nice tall glass of ice, and you've got what me and Bobby are enjoying right now. I'm going to have one more little sip.
And it doesn't have to be Midori with the melon liqueur. I know that you have a different melon liqueur of choice, and Mrs. Stacks works fine. It's just whatever. I ended up with Midori because it's a cool bottle and I like it in the collection. But I mean, if someone came over, we were having a huge party and I was making a bunch of drinks with Midori, I'd probably buy a melon liqueur to throw down in like 20 drinks or whatever instead of the Midori, because Midori is like $20 a bottle.
But Midori is cool. And also, too, we may go ahead and have one on the show here. A Midori Sour is a very popular drink. There is a signature drink with the brand name. So it's good to have it in the bar, because if somebody comes over, let's just say, and you have to host, you have to be the entertainer, and they're like, let me have a Midori sour. And you're like, I don't have Midori. Sorry. You don't want to be that guy.
No, we have everything. We try to have everything. You know what's funny? My son does his virtual school at the kitchen table, but then it overlooks like the bookcase that I have on the top shelf is like all liquor and liqueurs. So in his shot, when he's like meeting with the teachers, there's just like a full bar behind him every time. So good for him. That teacher's probably looking at that thinking, if I could just have access to that kitchen just for a day, this terrible school year would be better.
Tough times, man. Tough times, but refreshing cocktail. I'm enjoying it. I don't know, man. I do have to say here before we get into some more conversation that I don't know about you, but do you find yourself going to the bar and actually getting creative and making a lot of drinks, or are you just going there and having shots of whiskey and stuff like that? I mean, be honest. What are you doing on the whole? I gotta know.
It depends on what I'm doing. So oftentimes I do go to the bar and I mix myself up some from scratch whiskey sours. And I enjoy that. It's been a couple months since I've made an old fashioned. It's been a while since I've had a Stallone. It's been a while since I've had a rusty nail. But a lot of times though, like yesterday, I think I had 5 whiskey sours.
Yeah.
Getting in there, but they were all fresh squeezed lemons, homemade simple syrup, like with a cherry, like legit whiskey sours. So
Good.
I do make myself some drinks, but there's plenty of times when I go in there and I just grab the whiskey bottle, take a couple of shots, wash it down with a Coke Zero, and get back to what I'm doing. I'm not gonna lie.
Buzz in a pinch. I understand. No, it makes sense. I was just wondering because like yesterday I was like, man, I have all this booze, all these liqueurs, all these mixers, and I'm like, just gonna make myself a scotch. Just scotch.
Yeah, but how often do you get in the mood? Because like once a week at least, I get in the mood to be a mixologist, and I'll go in there and be like, what am I gonna make? Like for instance, on Thanksgiving, I made my wife a Mai Tai. And I was like, here's your Thanksgiving Mai Tai. And she's like, that's awesome.
That's good.
Yes, Mai Tai is one of the favorite drinks in the West House.
That's a Stiff Truth favorite, actually. And yeah, you know what I did recently, though? I think it's a week before last. I think it was a Saturday night or a Sunday. Can't remember. But I was having my normal whatever kind of bland drinks. I say that now, I'm Scotch. I'm so spoiled. I got so much white privilege. But then I went ahead and made some Washington apples. And I'll tell you what, my friend, after a day of drinking here and there, just having a drink probably 2 drinks an hour, a nice steady, for an alcoholic, a nice steady buzz going.
I love the caveat.
It's true, because some people listen to this, be like, dude, I'd be fucking floored if I was having 2 drinks an hour. I'm like, dude, that's a nice equal playing field right there. But then having because if you remember, the Washington apples are pretty dank, but they taste really, really, really good, and they don't taste dank because of the cranberry juice, right? Kind of cuts right through that.
So much better than the Appletini.
Oh, dude, so much better. But yeah, it's like it's an ounce. If you remember, I don't remember exactly, but I think it's an ounce and a half of Canadian whiskey or some type of rye bourbon, and then you do the rest with the sour pucker or whatever, the puckers, which is 30-40%, alcohol or proof or whatever. I can't remember. And then just a little bit of cranberry. But a couple of those, a couple of those in martini glasses. I was like, boom, pounded it because it tastes like candy. Then I had the second one. I was like, woo!
They're so good. And to garnish it with a slice of apple.
Oh, now you're just getting out of hand. Now you're getting dangerous if you do that, because then you can literally just like leave the apple in there while you make a couple of them and then suck on the apple and get the booze out afterwards. Good stuff. But I will tell you, the other one that I'm not even gonna entertain it because it's too dangerous is what we had. Was it yesterday or last week? No, the week before. When did we have blue balls? Because that
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, was the blue balls like the blue raspberry otter pop, or was
yes.
It
was totally that one.
Watch out. But
yeah.
anyways,
those back in the college years, those are called the penny dropper drinks, right? You make a bunch of those with some Jello shots, and your party is rocking. There's some people getting laid.
Yeah, and if you remember, when you went to go buy alcohol for those type of parties, you had to usually get a 5th of apple puckers too. It's like puckers in general.
Something for the ladies, right? The hypnotic,
the Zima, if you want to take it back a few years earlier, something like that, or the Smirnoff ices. You got to get a 12er of that too. Got to have something doesn't have a lot of bite. For the panty dropping.
The bottle of tequila rose going around the room.
The Alizé. Yes. Well, rough transition here, Bob. Sorry. Just knowing
it is pretty rough.
Just knowing what's coming up, I don't know what to say. But let's just go ahead and let's get it out there. Today, me and Bob, we're going to get into something that's I would say it's a hot topic. I would say it gets people a little bit fired up one way or the other here, but we felt it was necessary to go ahead and give people our view on things that are pretty important, very relevant to the conversation. I don't think this has ever really died down since the 70s, right?
Well, and let's be honest, this topic came back around full force with the nomination and confirmation of Justice Barrett.
Well, and that's what kind of brought it to our attention again here too, because we even talked about Roe v. Wade and other things potentially being overturned, or this paradigm and how we handle abortion. So just so everybody can get right on out there and say it if you haven't already kind of got the hint here. But yeah, we're going to talk about our views on abortion. And I couldn't honestly think of a way to put that lightly because it's not really a light conversation. But here we go. Me and Bob are going to murder it. We're probably going to make fun of it here or there. I may even throw in a prison sex joke while we're talking about it. I'm not quite sure yet, but
Your choice of language is impeccable. Let me start here. We're a couple of men, right? Personally, I've never been part in an abortion. Never knocked anyone up, had an abortion. It's never been a decision that I've been confronted with.
Same here.
Right, so it's just not something that I've really gotten to make. But I know right away when with a couple of middle-aged guys talking about abortion, right away some of the feminists will stand up and be like, "Well, men shouldn't have any input on this conversation."
Sure.
And just to start there, that is some full of shit. Right, that is a full of shit comment, and it's anti-progressive to leave men out of the conversation, because it is a decision between two people, and two people need to be, in my opinion, very accountable for that decision equally, both ways. And I think that the way things have going, it's skewed, and it's gone towards the woman has the complete say. And I'll explain in a little bit why I think that's total bullshit, and not for the reasons that you're probably already assuming that I'm going to say. I have a different take on this, just in general, in my ideas about abortion. But I will say this: I've always found it fucking baffling why abortion is in our Constitution at all. I think it's very weird that we need the government to step in on a decision like that. And I think that, much like the House of Representatives is trying to get weed off the books, personally, I think we need to get abortion off the books, off the law. It's not a law thing. It's not a legal thing. It can be a moral thing, but to each individual person. Right? There shouldn't be some sort of criminal liabilities involved here. This shouldn't be something that Papa Government steps in and can lead our lives with. I think we're all capable of making decisions for ourselves. But I'll start off with that. I think that it shouldn't be part of American law.
Okay. Yeah. No, I like what you said there, and there was it's a couple of things that one thing I have to commend you too for kind of kicking up some dirt in the progressives' face about not being progressive. I like that. That could be a little bit of irony to a certain extent if you really examine that one.
That's how you get them. You out progressive them.
But seriously, very very well said, and I agree with you, and I totally get the immediate criticism of what you're saying without further context about, again, and I've heard it before too. The man, this is not really something you have to deal with personally. Okay, physically, we could just say that. That's all you can really say is physically you're not dealing with it. But I agree with you 100% that this is there's definitely just as much emotion and should be as much involvement on the male side of the role as much as the female side of the role in the decision. And then honestly, the feelings beforehand and afterwards too, I think are equally impactful and both very, very, very important. But I will say a couple of things here. I like what you said about not having it in the law. The one thing I guess that I could think is a little bit dicey about that as a blanket statement is you do have to bring legal precedent into the conversation when there's harm to a person, right? So I think that might be one of the big conversation pieces too, is when exactly is a baby considered a person at what point in time, right?
When do their civil liberties kick in?
Right. Because then you have an argument all of a sudden. I was like, well, yeah, you have to bring the law into this when you are potentially killing a person, right? But that's probably the most dicey part of the entire debate in abortion, if you ask me, because that's the big hook, right? A lot of people say this is purely a decision, decision between two people about what is right and what is for at the best interest of not only the mother, the father, but also the potential person that will be the baby, a product of what has happened here. So that's the only thing I see that's a little bit dicey about that blanket statement about not being able to have any kind of legality involvement, because you have that argument too. But again, though, at the same time, I do have this feeling, and I'll echo it just the way you did too. I personally never had to deal with this situation. I know people that have, but I've never had to deal with the situation to where I had to face the idea of aborting my potential child. I just haven't had it. But I have had one potential scare, maybe, where I was in high school, thought maybe there was a pregnancy, and then felt the doom and gloom of that happening at my age. You know, a 15, 16-year-old kid now all of a sudden has somebody that he can't legitimately take care of, nor can the mother. What do we do? And it definitely, that road, that train of thinking of doing that and having an abortion definitely played out in an entirety in my mind as a legitimate solution to it, right? Because there is something where, again, if you have no frame of reference, it hasn't happened to you, then you maybe really don't understand the weight of the decision or all the variables and how they're really going to impact your decision making on this kind of pivotal decision. But with that being said, I honestly believe the same thing, that this should definitely be more of a personal decision between a couple of people than having government involved at all. And my personal stance here is I'm okay with abortion. I'm okay with abortion. I'll define what I think a moral to me, right? What I think is something I'd feel good about moving forward with. Hey, this happened, but I think there's definitely going to be some rules and regulations with me about what is bad and what is right and what is too far. I'll put it that way. But I think it's fine. I think it's absolutely fine. If you want to do this, this is up to you. Make the right decision. Think about it. Make sure all parties involved are on the same fucking page, and then do you. Because again, if it doesn't affect me, and this is kind of a encompassing thing with how I look at a lot of different topics, but if it doesn't affect me, it doesn't affect me negatively. It doesn't affect anybody around me. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. Because here's the other thing. I have to imagine this, and I've talked to some people that have had to make this decision. You have to live with yourself after you make any decision in life. This decision might be one of the ones that might be a little tougher than others to continue living with if you regret it. If you don't regret it, totally fine. And the reason why I think wholeheartedly this should be totally fine, totally legal. If you're going to do it, make your decision, because the people that make the decision are going to have to live with the consequences and the regrets they may have or they may not have. And if they don't have them, great. If they do have them, that's what you have to live with. I'm sorry, but you made your bed. Now you got to sleep in it, kind of thing. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. And, you know, the whole problem with the reason that I don't like abortion on the books is because everyone wants an all or nothing approach from the government, right? Everyone wants abortions to be legal. Everyone wants them to be illegal, right? They're pretty much split half and half,
It's
as
a
we
black and
kind of
white kind
saw
of
in
thing
the
with
last
some people.
election, right?
Sure.
And it's just not the way that it is. In fact, the reason Roe v. Wade came up is in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s. I forget exactly when
73,
this
right?
person was.
Well, that's when Roe v.
That's when the
yeah.
case was decided. 69, right? So 69, this lady Norma McCovey, right? McCorvey. She lived in Texas, and she wanted an abortion, but the abortion was illegal except when necessary to save the mother's life in Texas.
That makes sense.
Right. But she wanted an abortion. She thought it infringed on her civil liberties. Right. So they went and fought it out and went to the Supreme Court, and so the Supreme Court voted 7-2 that says this does have a go along with the Right to Privacy Act, and it affected the due process clause of the 14th Amendment, a right to privacy that protects a pregnant woman's right to choose whether or not to have an abortion, right? Is what they decided. 7-2 decision. So it wasn't even a very close decision. So they stipulated, though, at that time in the original Roe v. Wade, that it was gone by trimester, right? There was no restrictions on abortion up until 3 months. Right. And then up to 6 months, there were some restrictions. And then up to after 6 months, there was only medically necessary at that point. Could it
Yes.
ever be done? So
Fear of death of the mother or something like that.
right.
Safety. Yeah, sure,
And
sure.
so that was the whole thing. And then in 1992, yes, the Supreme Court had another case to where they got rid of, this is Planned Parenthood versus Casey, right? And they got rid of that trimester guidelines, and they went with a different standard of scrutiny. So the whole problem that with the all or nothing approach is, if you get rid of, say, I'm all for if someone wants to have an abortion, that's between the husband and the wife, the male and the female, and the doctor up until 3 months, whatever. There's no difference for me as wearing a condom, as getting rid of a couple of cells that are just starting to split with the morning after pill. For me, there's not a whole lot going on there. There's no cognitive thinking going on at that point. It is kind of what it is. But then of course in the 6 month, there's a lot more. Hospitals won't even fight for a right to keep a child under 24 weeks. Right? It's too expensive. It's not equitable for them to throw that much money at it and bankrupt the mother when chances are that baby's not going to make it. Right? So they won't fight for a baby's life under 24 weeks. So then that kind of goes along with the thinking of, well, anything kind of under 6 months, same sort of deal. But then what happens is, if you banned it, say after 3 months or 6 months, well, then you're going to put people in awkward situations then when they're having an issue where your baby is dying and will not live more than 10 minutes outside once it's born, or it might die and start going sepsis in you and you start dying before you come to term, right? So you induce the baby, earlier or whatever, but that an induction of a baby before term can also be considered abortion because of the language and the terminology that's used in the laws. So you get into these real hairy lines, and that's when people start saying, well, late term abortions and the lefties, and no one wants to pull a baby out kicking and screaming and shoot it in the head. That no one has ever wanted to do that. That's not what anyone's ever talked about late-term abortions. It's these one-off situations. So you always have, you've taken stats, right? You always have the line of normalcy and the guidelines at which normal things happen, right? But then you have these outliers and these significant situations. And when you're dealing with 170 million women in the country, you're going to have a few outliers that come along that don't fit in the laws. And you're completely fucking them by having an all or nothing approach. And those are the people that that these laws really have to look out for. It's not the normal people. It's not the teenagers. Like, if a teenager gets pregnant with another teenager, whatever, and they're like, well, we should just have an abortion. Well, if you're capable with your family and you have the support, you should have an adoption. That's the moral thing to do. People are looking for babies. Parents are trying to have babies.
Yeah, there's plenty of people that
couples
can't
need
have it, that are
babies.
sterile, right? I mean, there's alternative lifestyle. We'll just group everybody together that wants children. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that to me makes a lot more sense. But you're right. One thing you had mentioned there is, to me, there's two things I think that will kind of erase a little bit of so much of the black and white, all or nothing here. But I think it's intent and consequences, right? I think if the intent of the doctors and the woman are, again, and these outliers, which are very important, because these are the ones that will be left out in the cold if it's black and white, right? Like you were just saying.
No, those are the ones that end up in Mexico.
However, if there is an understanding that what the intent is to save, or, again, prevent somebody from dying because they're going to do it, then I think it changes the game. I think, again, this is one of the exceptions, and there's numerous other ones. I think in cases of rape too, I think it's more justifiable. Yeah. Get that fucking baby out of here. It was unwarranted. You're probably going to resent it for the rest of your time, unless you're just a really, really sweet person. However, again, there's certain exceptions to this rule, if you want to call it, that I think are totally fine. And again, it's all about the intent and the consequences of that action. If it's all rooted in, hey, somebody is going to die here unless we take action, and I know what we're going to do. Technically, black and white is not right, but if we don't do this, this is potentially what's going to happen, and the odds are overwhelmingly looking like it's going to happen if we don't take some kind of action now. I think that's a perfect exception to any rule when you talk about right or wrong abortion. One thing you did say too, the late term abortions in general, and this is just me in general, outside of those these outliers and these extenuating circumstances, I'm going to say no go. If it looks like a human being, if it has fucking hands, if it has eyes that are opening, that can hear, that can kick, and that's usually in the second trimester already, then I think you got to go ahead and just call it what it is. You've already had at that point. It's not, we're not saying this because I know some states you have to call it at like 6 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that, before you can even realize or feel that you're pregnant. I think that's a little too early. You know what I mean?
Right.
But if you are at the point where you are noticeably discomforted by a fucking baby growing inside you, and now you finally have made the decision to get an abortion, it's too fucking late. You missed the fucking boat. There was a 12 to 16, whatever, 20-week window where you could have got this done. You didn't get off the pot. So in those instances, I say, hey, you know what? Now you're just being selfish. I hate to say that.
I'm obviously like, you pretty much have to be a monster to just be full on late term abortions are just okay as a form of birth control, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So very few people actually would ever say that. And I thought about, like, well, what if you just got rid of them at that point unless it was medically necessary? I ran across a case that like opened my eyes a little bit, right? And it was this man and this wife had 2 kids. They're having their 3rd kid. The kid wasn't gonna make it. And the kid was going to die. Short lifespan. Even if it did make it to birth, it wouldn't last more than a couple hours outside of the womb, right? It's one of these things. So they were offered, an option of we can have a C-section, and you can get this child out before she dies, so that you guys get a chance to spend time with her, right? And so they took pictures. They spent time with her. They had a moment. And sorry.
That's all right. Well, that again, this is a special circumstance, obviously.
An outlier. Well, the whole problem was in her state, it was an abortion and not medically necessary because it wasn't affecting her, right? So they had to sue to get this hospital to approve it as a medical necessary procedure so that they could spend what ended up being about 20 minutes.
Can you imagine? I just can't imagine. Yeah, no. And see, again, you are 100% nail right on the head there with this blanket black or white legislation, right? About this kind of stuff doesn't make any sense because you got the outlier.
That's tough to talk about.
Yeah. Well, this is a stiff conversation. This is a stiff topic. Maybe, one of the hardest ones to even try to transition jokingly about, because it's there's just it's not super funny.
Well, and Scott, honestly, I think it's important for our listeners and our viewers to know, like they get a sense of where we stand on things, and they might assume, because that's how if you believe this and you believe that, well, then you'll assume that someone else that believes this also believes that. But we're Americans and we're unique and we're very diversified in that way. So I thought it was a good time to bring this topic up and let people into our beliefs and our lives and our viewpoints as to how we feel about something that's so important, legislatively, culturally, and so important for a lot of us just to dial it back a little bit and keep our morality out of other people's moralities and lives. We're all going to pretty much make good decisions when it comes to things, when we have a chance to make them. And I just wanted people to get a glimpse into kind of how we stood in this. And I just thought it was important to get that out there for everyone.
Well, it is very important too, because here's the other thing. I don't know if we're on the same page or not. We've never really discussed it. Again, this is not one of these things you usually bring up and random shooting the shit chatter with people, right? So,
especially men.
Yeah, especially men. It's just not, hey, you want to talk about abortion, dude? Let's have a beer and talk about abortion. No, that's not a topic that normally comes up. But I'll say this too. I think it's important to point out that there's certain people like myself and like you, but I am okay with the legality of abortion. I think it's something that is a choice. I do have a cutoff where I think it's not cool, and I don't think it makes sense, because I start to feel for what is, I guess, technically an unborn child, but a child nonetheless.
Right.
And I start thinking about being a father, and I just put myself in the shoes of that person. And honestly, I think it should be legal. I'm okay with it. But dude, I couldn't bring myself to make that conscious decision if it was just a selfish decision for me and my wife or who, whatever, me and my girlfriend. It doesn't matter, right? You know, I know that I couldn't get past it. I would have way too much regret on the other end of that decision, just thinking about what could have been. You know what I mean? When you think about being a father and what we've been able to have and what we've been able to see, nurturing and watching a child develop and having those proud father moments, you know what I mean? And seeing their first this and that, watching them realize the world and become a part of it and be excited. You know, that to me is something that is, it's priceless, dude. And to think that I could potentially erase that with a decision to me at the time seemed important to me and my goals or whatever, I would just regret it forever. So that's the interesting thing about, I guess, my stance is I'm okay with abortion, meaning you do you, that's fine. But that's what I was kind of highlighting earlier. Is like, hey, if you make this decision, you got to be with your own, you got to be okay with yourself. You got to be okay with who you are on the other end of this decision. I couldn't do that. I just couldn't do it. So even though it might be better for me financially or better for me or whatever, I probably wouldn't even make this decision if it would put my kid in a better position, you know, or whatever it is. Like just saying, like, you know, a lot of people will say, well, I made the decision to have an abortion because there's no way I was bringing a kid into this life with me. I mean, I'd be like, I'm a, you know, drug addict bum or whatever. I live on the streets or, you know, I can't bring them into that. You know what? Me, I would have brought him into that and just fought and kicked and screamed my way to success for that child. That's me. And I would have regretted any other decision on the other end of it. So I just got to say that because I think it's important there's a lot of people, I think, that maybe they don't think they can be pro make your own decisions. They have to be the moral high ground person and say, well, I wouldn't do that. So hence it's not good that you do it. That's not what we're saying over here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and especially in a country where religion is so diversified and supposed to be separated from government. It's not, but it's supposed to
Yes.
be.
Yeah. Sure.
Right. And so it's very oppressive to push religious causes. And let's just be honest, most of the anti-abortion are pushing for religious reasons. For nothing other than religious reasons.
100%.
It's morality tied to their theology. And that's bullshit because that's, you know, people without theology have high integrity and morality and are capable of making good, you know, humane decisions about things.
Here is to me a totally legitimate scenario. I'm not going to bat an eye. I would say, hey, it's misfortunate. You know, it happens though. In the scenario though, a couple of kids in their teens, right? Get knocked up. They have a pregnancy test within weeks or what have you, you know, and find out that they're pregnant. Then almost within a week or two after that, make the decision together to go to the clinic and get the abortion. What's wrong with that, dude? Take your moral shit or whoever's moral shit out of the picture. You know what I mean? What I don't understand is why, again, like why other people that are not involved in that decision, why it gets under their skin so much. And like you said, usually it is unfortunately, all it is really hooked on is their religious perspective on that being absolutely morally wrong in their view. However, they got no frame of reference here. Move on the fuck with your day. Go to Sunday school and then go fucking be an asshole, you know, for the rest of the week and judge people all you want. But there's nothing wrong with that in my mind. There's nothing wrong with that. That is a perfectly legitimate play out of abortion and that decision to do so. Now, again, are those people maybe going to regret that years down the road? Probably.
Probably. And definitely. And if it's not all the time, there's going to be once every few years, they've had a few glasses of wine and they sit back and they reflect and then they wonder. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And when they finally achieve that level of adulting and that professional status that they were looking for, they become comfortable in their own skin enough to be like, you know, I might have could have struggled. I think I might have had enough help to do it. And people will doubt and go circle back to that for their whole fucking life. We all do with our decisions.
Oh, and here would have been my thing right out of the gate because I would have been so fearful to tell my parents that I impregnated my girlfriend or what have you, and that she's going to have a kid, that would have probably reinforced my decision to have the abortion, right? But then immediately, retroactively, and regretfully, I'd be like, you know what? My parents, they would have been super pissed, but they're both pretty well off or whatever it is. I would have probably got so much help if I just would have thought about this a little bit more.
Would
And
have been super stoked for a
right?
grandkid.
Yeah. They would have saw past this, they would have seen the silver lining. My kid could be a doctor right now. They could be in med school. You know what I mean? And you could just keep playing out these nasty scenarios in your head. And again, Stiffies, don't get me wrong. If that's not your bag and you can have an abortion and never think two shits about it for the rest of your life, that's cool. That's you. Do you? That's totally fine. It's just not me. It's just not me.
And most of us have points of reflection. Some are later in life, but most of us will have points of reflections throughout our life. I do it now about decisions that I've made and things that I've done wrong and things that I could have done better or could have done differently and how it might have worked out. But the path is the path. The whole thing about the abortions, I think we're pretty much online, is people shouldn't have them for birth control. If they do, it needs to be really early on, to where there's very little difference between an abortion and a plan B.
Yeah, and then round 2, wrap that shit up and get on the pill, respectively. I mean, be fucking safe about it. If you don't want a kid and you're not ready to have a kid, take the measures. Now, if you do all that because there's still a margin of error, here's my mind again. What if the pill's like 90% effective or something like that? Condoms are like 66% effective or something like that. You combine those two things, that's like a strong 90 something, right? So you're getting in there. And it still happens. Okay, cool. You can have the abortion. But again, you turn those tables on me. If that was me, if I wore a condom, girl's on the pill, and I still got her pregnant, I would probably unfortunately be that guy. Well, it's just meant to be. You know what I mean? Like I would still have that regret if I made the decision. I was like, man, you know what? Something was there. Something was trying to get out into this world that was a part of me, and I snuffed it out for selfish reasons. So I would have these regrets. Again, I'm just playing out my inner dialogue in that situation. So,
well, now I want to stir up the whole can of worms and circle back to my opening statement about men should have zero say in this.
Hold on, progressives, tune in. lean into this one.
So here's the thing. Obviously, it takes 2 sets of chromosomes to make a child, right? So obviously it takes 2.
This is going to be Bob's birds and the bees conversation.
so hypothetically, right? You knock up a girl, and let's say you're Mormon, right? So it was already strike 1 for having premarital sex to begin with.
I thought you were going to say it's already strike 1 for being Mormon.
So you're already in that boat, right? And then you get your girlfriend pregnant, right? And you guys are both Mormon, or maybe she's not, right? And she's just like, well, I'm going to have an abortion. And then the man's like, well, I can't. It's against my religious beliefs. We can't have an abortion. But at that point, the way things are now, it doesn't fucking matter what that dude says. She's going to go have that abortion, and that dude lost a child. Now, she didn't want the child, but he did. Obviously, he probably have a family to help out, and if not, he's willing to do it on their own. There are single fucking parents out there. Let's take a look at all the single moms and fatherless children that we have in America. So don't tell me that it's impossible for a single parent to raise a child, because the proof is all in the pudding there. So say that father wanted that kid and had no say and doesn't get to have his child, that's fucking wrong, right? Because if it were the other way around, which, let's be honest, it normally is. Mm-hmm. The girl is like, I'm pregnant, and the dude's like, abort that shit, I'm out. And then she's like, I'm not going to abort it. I'm going to have this child. She makes that decision for both of them, right? So no, he's fiscally responsible for 18 years and $100,000 or whatever that's going to add up to for that child, whether he wants to have that decision or not, right? But then if you flip it, there's no accountability for the woman to go have an abortion without the father say so. So she can make that decision for both ways, but then benefit from 18 years financially if she so chooses, or if she's malicious or that's all she cares about. That opportunity is there, is what I'm saying. So there's something terribly wrong with that system to me personally. So
just like anything, it can be taken advantage of by shitty people. I mean, what you just laid out there is something that should be wholesome, objective, agreed upon by two parties, and a lot of people see money, or they see being able to take advantage of somebody and basically ride on their coattails to a certain extent financially, and they go for it, which is very sad.
So again, we know the norms, and what I'm talking about are the margins. I'm talking about the outliers here. So let's just hypothetically say these two kids got pregnant and they disagree about what to do with this child. Well,
Do we get the law involved in there, Bob?
here I think we get the people civilly involved. This is my solution to this that I thought about. So you get two people. Once a pregnancy is confirmed, you have to register that pregnancy with the government and say, we have a pregnancy coming. At that point, you have to come up with a parenting plan or an abortion plan or an adoption plan or whatever you have to do at that point to decide, so both parents have a decision in that. And if they don't stick to the plan, then there's accountability on both sides. So if they decide that there's a pregnancy, we're both deciding to have an abortion, and they write that down, and then the girl goes and has the abortion, and later on the guy's like, I said I didn't want an abortion. But you said you signed that you did. Right. There's accountability for that.
This is a legitimate reason to have government involved, because honestly, and I can't believe I just said that, but honestly,
civil agreements with government enforcement.
There is a potential new life coming into this family, right? Or whatever. It has to be documented, right? And there has to be there has to be a paper trail of what happened and why and who confirmed it and who didn't. So
the whole thing, that way you get accountability both ways. So at that point, if you say, we're going to have this child, or let's say we're not going to have this child, right? And then the woman then says, you know what? I know that we said that and we agreed at that, but I'm not going to tell you, and I'm just going to have this child. And then in a year from now, I'm going to hit you up for this child support for this unwanted child that we both agreed we wouldn't have. And you're on the hook for 18 years. So thanks for the check, right? There's accountability there, right? And then it would be forced. The government would force you to pay your child support, or you would go to jail, right? Now, say it was the other way around. Now, this is the game changer. Let's say two people agreed to not have this child, or to have this child, and then she goes and has an abortion after the agreement. There's accountability already signed in a civil agreement. Does she now pay 18 years of punitive damages as a form of monthly lost child support to this person?
Ooh.
That might influence some decisions and have some accountability. All I'm saying is that it's a baby made by two people. Yes, women go through hell. My wife has gone through hell to have, especially our last one. It was a really difficult pregnancy, and I was there, and I know how difficult it was. But the lack of accountability that is reciprocating is astounding to me, at how a female gets all of these choices with zero accountability and only beneficial things out of it. So that's kind of the problem. And I know I'm probably the asshole for this, but all I'm asking for is a mutual decision where there's civil accountability both directions, so that what decided on is decided on, and then you're civilly liable if you break that, just like any other contract.
Well, I want to just provide you a little bit of comfort, if I may, and say that this is not the reason you're an asshole. You're an asshole for many, many other reasons.
I appreciate the insight.
Yes. So please find some comfort in that, if you would, Bob. But you're absolutely right. It takes two to tango, and two are equally responsible and affected by the outcome of this kind of decision. It's one of the most paramount, intense decisions you'd have to make in your entire life. There's no joke there.
And it's more difficult than marriage.
Yeah. And I'll say this too. I guess we can just thank God that a lot of people weren't aborted, because we wouldn't have all these fantastic porno magazines that we looked at when we were kids.
What a transition.
Again, another rough one, Bob, but I just had to roll with it here. If you are thinking and watching, especially on YouTube, guys, and this conversation got a little hot, got a little deep here. We got emotional here. And if you're looking at our backgrounds, you're like, what the fuck is wrong with these guys? We also were planning on talking about something a little lighthearted, something a little bit more fun, something a little bit throwback, right? So if you don't mind, let's get past the abortion thing.
Let's just abort this topic and move on.
See, there's nothing wrong with that. A good decision that we won't regret. But honestly, guys, some of you guys out there maybe a little too young for this. Maybe you've heard of these things. They're quite archaic, and they have pages and you have to flip them. Sometimes there's even articles and stories within that are risque and kind of
There were
interesting.
articles?
In some, I used to claim I read them to certain people, especially females. But no, we wanted to chat as something a little bit more lighthearted, a little bit more fun. Porno magazines, pornographic magazines, nudie magazines, whatever you want to call them, right? I mean, we all know the Playboys, penthouses, and clubs out there, right? So,
Club. I haven't heard that in a while.
oh,
Good recall.
you like that, right? You like that. Now, I will say this: as a young wee lad back in the 80s, I thought the pornographic magazine was quite the treasure that I wanted to find in my uncle's or grandfather's or whoever's house. But when I did, oh boy, did I get so giddy and excited. But let's roll this back a little bit, Bob. What were your initial impressions of the Holy Grail, the porno mag back in the day?
I could tell you the first one I ever saw.
Oh, he just got, guys, if you can't see the video, his face just lit up and he got so excited. It's like a polar opposite from the abortion conversation, as it should be.
I was 7 years old in 2nd grade, and I was in school, and I was going to the bathroom, and my friend Bo Broom. That's right. I know you're out there, Bo.
What's up, Bo? What's up,
he
baby?
pulls me aside and he's just like, "Hey, man, I got a Playboy in my backpack."
He's like, "Oh,
like,
shit. Oh,
I'm like, no way. And so we go to the bathroom and he busts out this Playboy in his backpack. And I was like, holy shit, look at them titties. Them titties though. Right. So 7th grade in the bathroom, looking at a Playboy, living life. Dude. Covering your crotch with a book on the way back to class.
Oh my goodness. I love it. Seriously though, is there anything better you can think about, especially in a child's mind? You know what I mean? Like the first glimpse at a porno mag. And yeah, I'm trying to think of what's better. I mean, you could have red rope licorice in your hand, the other hand. You know what I mean? So a porno mag, red rope licorice. I mean, what else? What else? I don't know. It might be a rhetorical question.
Tissue? I don't know.
You might be speeding up a couple of years there before that becomes a regular.
These kids today, they only know websites. They don't know about holding it up with one hand.
Oh,
not stick the pages together.
There is some there's some technique, because honestly, if you can't see the picture in entirety too, you might lose your excitement, which is not good either. So you've got to be able to have good viewing pleasure. Yeah, no, 100%. I will say this too. I love the bringing it back there, because I do remember as a kid that I used to have like a tree fort, like in the middle of middle of an orange grove, pretty much in Central Florida. This was when I was, I want to say just starting like middle school. You know what I mean? Like 12, 13, somewhere in there, somewhere that. But we had, no, it was even earlier than that. I take that back. This is like 11 or 10 or something like that. Yeah, it has to be a little bit younger. But we had a really cool tree fort, and in our tree fort, there was literally a lockbox with a bunch of Playboys in it that we had kind of all accumulated from our respective homes by older men. And we would literally, the plan was we'd go up there, we'd have like cigarettes or cigars or Swisher Sweets. I don't even know if we were inhaling them at that point. We decided it was cool to light them up. It's like a boys club. You know what I mean? It's like really cool kind of boys club. And we'd look at porno mags and giggle like little idiots, because that's what you did when you were excited as a small boy. But those were some of the most impactful times at that age. And it was a very special event too. Like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm going to the forts. Why? So I can look at nudie magazines with my friends. I mean, it's fucking amazing. I mean, what are you doing today? Going to the store? Jag off? You know what I mean? Good times, bro.
Now, these kids today will never know. I mean, it's all about, trying to get around parental controls and firewalls to get to websites.
And then it's instant gratification. You know what I mean?
Right?
You didn't have to find the right magazine or make sure you're not picking up a gay one or whatever it is. There was a little bit more investigation and research into
how about
which
the
magazine.
First time you discovered like a penetration mag, like Penthouse or Hustler.
Oh,
oh
yeah. And you're used to very, just more
artistic Playboy style, right?
Artistic, yes, more socially acceptable, more just more mainstream. And then all of a sudden you open another one up like Club or Hustler, or even Penthouse was the other more famous at all the other ones. Perfect 10, Barely Legal, which was actually owned by Playboy, I believe, if I remember correctly. But all, the penetration and quite frankly, the dirtiness of some of them. Some of them were a little much too. That's where you can go beyond some of these and be like, you can't call this a piece of work, like a piece of artwork. You just can't. I mean, I guess you could, but let's just face it. There's a bunch of goop hanging everywhere. It's like there's saliva dripping from her chin. I believe it's a mixture of saliva and baby batter. I'm not sure, just to bring it back to the abortion conversation, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. I remember the first time I saw like a penetration mag, and I'd always seen like, Playboys is what pretty much everyone had. Playboy was the standard, right? So when I first saw, I want to say it might have been Hustler, but it was either Hustler or Penthouse. Anyway, it was just full penetration, and it blew my mind. I was just like, oh my god, that's it, huh? That's what it looks like.
Yeah. And yeah, that is pretty intense too. I do remember there was a progression. I think Playboy catches your eye first. It's most notable, right? You said that, you get that. It's very there's barely bush. There's definitely no genitals kind of showing. There's no men, you know what I mean, in the conversation. In Playboy, it's strictly women, which I kind of like about Playboy. That's pretty cool. But then every other magazine is like literally just shots in time of intercourse. You know what I mean? That's the difference, basically.
But of like porn intercourse, right?
Yeah,
with like
yeah.
side views.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because every time you have sex, you always have when you're having sex, like doggy style, whatever. As a man, you always want to put the arm that may be in view of a visible camera. You want to put it behind your back and use it kind of as a guide, right? And that way everybody can see what's going on. Yeah.
Lean over to the left away from the shot and open the close hip up so that you get like full stroke view. Because I always perform to make sure that spot on the wall has an optimal viewing angle of this penetration.
Right. And when she's looking back at you, you always want to reach forward and move all the hair out of her face and hold it a little bit.
Right. Look at me. Look at me. I am the captain now.
And hopefully Tom Hanks is not looking back at you. Whew, that'd be a little bit tough. Well, depending on who you are. And I don't judge. But, well, let me ask you this, because I think, just in general here, we know all the players out there. I mean, we have a good idea. Let's talk about your favorite porno mag, dude. If you're looking at a nudie magazine, what's your go-to and why, Bob? I think that's where we're at.
I'm gonna say it's probably Playboy. Some of my most fond memories growing up were Playboy, so there's a little bit of nostalgia there, right? Yeah. Plus all the famous people were in Playboy, right? I mean,
all the people that you wanted to see nude. You know what I mean? You're like, oh wow, yeah,
right.
I want to see her nude for sure.
That's when famous. You get all the actresses and the models and everyone that you would hope to see naked. You ended up finding in Playboy. And obviously, I don't know. I haven't looked at a new Playboy in probably a decade. I don't think it's relevant anymore. I don't even know if they sell like actual hard copies of Playboy anymore, if it's just a website now. But
honestly, from what I understand, Hugh Hefner's daughter, took over as like kind of the main creative director behind the magazine. And I believe, don't quote me, but I believe they took like the fully nude pictures out.
They went like Playboy. Maxim style.
Yeah, they went more Maxim style. Maybe, I don't know if they're showing like nip here and there or something like that, but it's no longer like straight up nudity anymore, is what I understand.
Well, and times have changed. The objectification of women and everything has changed over the years. Even though I think there'd be plenty to argue that it was empowerment as much as it was in objectification, but that's potato. Either way, we just like the centerfolds. And they did have like the articles. I mean, you'd see a Playboy with like LaToya Jackson or something, right? And then right after, you'd read an article about Arnold and Terminator and something about on the set stuff.
I have to agree with you too. I did get some entertainment out of a lot of the other magazines, most notably Club, Hustler, and Penthouse. But besides those four that randomly just came off the tongue immediately, it was Playboy too. I am one for quality, and I just think the pictures and usually just the Playboy models in general were always just better looking, just crisper,
How
higher
about the
quality.
Penthouse Forum?
Now that was a fun little magazine.
With the nasty little short
Yeah.
stories in there.
That one was actually fun to read. And it wasn't like I was reading entertaining, like legitimate articles about business or stocks or anything like that. They were pretty good.
That's crazy.
stories.
This guy went over to appraise a house and had like a foursome. What a lucky day.
I got to start doing appraising.
Right? It's like, I'm here to appraise a house. Oh, well, you just caught me and my girlfriends all taking a shower. Really? What a coincidence.
Yeah. I love that too. Yeah, no, that was a great magazine in the sense that it was comical almost to a certain extent. But I do agree. I think Playboy hands down best magazine. And like you just said too, you could be looking at Cindy Crawford finally going nude, right, in her Playboy edition, or Marilyn Monroe, or Anna Nicole Smith is like shit, or somebody like, again, one of their big starlet kind of things, Jenny McCarthy, right? And then immediately after, you get a sick one-on-one interview with Hunter S. Thompson or something like that right after. So that's one thing, is they not only got the biggest names and drew the biggest like star power to do nudes, but they had the same power with just articles in general, right? You're not seeing Club Magazine get a interview with Arnold Schwarzenegger about Terminator. It's
in the 80s and 90s. Playboy was probably the most sought after interview location of any magazine outside of maybe the New Yorker.
Oh, it's a big deal. If you were doing a Playboy interview about something, that was big shit, very legitimate, and it's just a classy magazine, dude. And God rest his soul, Hugh Hefner, the epitome of a pimp. The modern pimp is Hugh Hefner. Who else wears like a red, like velvet, like silk bathrobe or whatever it was, a smoking jacket at all hours of the day at every event that he wanted to, with multiple women and 60, 70 years, his his junior on each side of him. I mean, come on now. Who else can do that? Is there ever going to be another Hugh Hefner? I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think times have just changed to where it wouldn't be socially acceptable for not only the person in the role of Hugh Hefner, and also women to befriend someone like a Hugh Hefner these days.
I guess that's true. Sad times to a certain extent. This is where I can say in context, out of context, the good old days.
Be careful with that one. We'll get canceled. Getting canceled probably be the best thing that happened to the show. It's just like we'd get so much like pub for being canceled and people calling for our cancellation that would increase in viewers. Kind of like Newsmax.
Yeah, well, there you go. Look at that. Looks like we're winning recipe, Bob, moving forward. But I don't know, man. I'm about done. What about you, bud?
I think so too. And I need another drink.
Good. Well, you know what? We'll continue drinking. We'll get this bad boy going. Enjoy the rest of our Sunday. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. And honestly, I think, Bob, your hard threat last week about getting some subscribers scared one person and got them to take action. So, guys, get in there or Bob will hunt you down. And what are you going to do to them, Bob? I don't want to threaten people for you. Please threaten them for me that don't subscribe and like.
Nothing. I'm all bark.
Okay. So Bob's not going to do anything, but guys, it put a smile on our face that we're getting more subscribers, getting more views on YouTube. Don't forget to check us out on the podcast platforms, write us a review on Apple, check us out on Spotify, whatever you got to do, guys. But it's always fun to chat with you guys. I hope you didn't get too upset today with Bob's chauvinistic abortion views. I'm just kidding. No. But guys, I'm Scott Casanova, Bob West with me as always. I had a fun time. We're going to see you guys next week. So until then, love you all. Take care. Stiff on.
See ya.